Welcome to Hometown TV Magazine, the show that brings you interesting people, places, and events from the greater Glens Falls area and the lower Adirondack region. And now our host, Steve Scoville.
Here we are on Lake George again. This week on Hometown TV Magazine, our lead story comes from Lake George, and we'll be visiting with Don Pensel. He's the inventor of this revolutionary new boat that you see here. It's a special boat because it's got skis on the underside, and you'll see that when we get into the story. This boat is special for a number of reasons, and we'll be telling you about that on this edition of the magazine. Jeff Trober will also be along in a little while with the story, but first, the Don Pensel boat called the Rockette on Lake George. Take a close look at this boat. Can you tell what's new and different about it? Underneath, on both sides, it sits on skis, and can you guess why? Well, it has to do with a Lake George man's dream to ride through the water in a boat without that familiar pounding and bouncing that often takes the fun out of boating. Water friction is reduced and you get a dry ride, even in rough waves. The name of the boat is the Rockette. It looks sort of like a rocket on water, and its inventor's name is Don Pensel. History first on the boat. Tell us how the idea got started in your mind and what the progression has been to this boat.
Well, actually, it started a long time ago, and I've often thought that something with elongated running surfaces would work a lot better than having a lot of hull in the water and free to be pounded around by the waves as you're going at high speed in the water. So I've long thought that something of this type of an arrangement would be an advantage for high-speed boats.
As we said, this boat has a revolutionary design. Don Pensel built two others before this one, making improvements each time. The story was even picked up by Popular Science magazine back in 1977, several years into Don's dream project that began with his 12-foot boat and later an 18-footer. Each boat was tested, refinements and improvements were made, and now here's the Rockette. Pensel, who's a retired one-time owner of the Dunham's Bay Boat Company, has put a lot of tender loving care into this craft, building it from scratch. The skis on the early models were flat. They had springs and shock absorbers somewhat like a car's, with trailing arms holding free pivoting skis. The Rockette is a world different. The underside has a different type hull, a gull wing configuration. And the skis, well, they're gull wing too. They give the boat more lift. In the end, it makes for a smooth ride on even rough water at high speed.
I tried to originally I took the size of skis that people use for water skiing, figured the weight of an individual, and figured the weight of the boat, took a ratio, and figured just roughly how much larger the ski would have to be on a boat that weighed so much, and then I made the skis that size, and they worked out about right. Actually, I haven't done much changing on the size of the skis, but I've done quite a lot of improving on the shape of the skis, and it made quite a difference, and especially the adding of the gull wing on the bottom of the boat, giving it more lift and requiring less weight on the skis, was a big improvement because it helped the steering considerably. Originally I had kind of a truck feel that you couldn't turn the boat as good, but once I got the boat riding high in the water with a proper lift on skis and hull, the boat steers very well now, and that problem was licked.
Well, seeing and feeling is believing for a reporter, so how about a test run? Don Pensel was more than happy to oblige, so our next step was to ask for a ride. What exactly do you have to do from the cockpit here now to get this boat to operate as you want with the skis?
Well, I just have to actuate a couple of valves here. The skis that rest, I leave them in the up position. That means the air is out of the system. And in order to get air in the system, I have a tank here, which is always kept up to a certain level. And the air pressure is available so that when I open up this valve, the air, the one on the right here, the air comes into the system. And I have a gauge here that shows me how much pressure I have. And when I reach the proper pressure, I just shut the valve off. And then this valve over here lets the air out of the system. And that's when I'm stationary. I just let the air out so the skis are up on the surface and stabilize the boat at the dock.
And a smooth ride it was. A new feel, too. Not your conventional bumpy ride with the front of the boat constantly coming out of the water and pounding the waves. And this was different. The special air tank on board kept proper pressure in the suspension of the skis, and our quick turns felt more like a turn on a curve in a car than a tip-over banking effect as in most boats. What about the engineering of the Rockette? How are the skis designed, and how do you know where to place them?
Well, that's one of the things that had to be considered when I started building this type of boat. I figured that if I just built skis that were not free to pivot, that on a turn, you wouldn't get a proper lift. You'd have nothing to compensate for this centrifugal force. So I figured that if the skis were free to pivot, same as they are with a person on water skis, if the ski gets more force, downward force on it, why it automatically gets pushed under and automatically increases its angle to the water, which gives it more lift. And the other ski is just the opposite. It's raised up and it automatically decreases its force on the boat.
And that's the story of the Rockette, Don Pensel's revolutionary new design of a boat. And it's right in our own backyard on Lake George. A real dream-come-true story from the first boat started in 1973 to a new improved model, and after that, the final design, the Rockette. Or is it the final design? Who knows? Maybe Don has some more ideas to make it even better.
Our hometown TV magazine cameras are back at East Field. It's playoff time in the Eastern League, and our Glens Falls White Sox are into the finals. The question is, who will be the opponent? We talked with manager Jim Mahoney about the two possibilities in the upcoming Eastern League playoffs, and you'll be finding out more about that later on this edition of Hometown TV Magazine.
Also coming up on the program, a look at the first annual Lake George Monster Rally.
Your scrumpy must start.